Hi, darling. Welcome back. How come Nigeria has Nollywood, the US has Hollywood, and India has Bollywood? Even countries like Korea have a thriving film and television industry that rivals American standards. What made me think about this topic and the lack of diversity in the South African film industry was a conversation between Don Tandega King and Mac G on the podcast. And here is the clip.
Yeah.
For a lot of people.
Yeah. What roles do you still want to play?
I haven't played like a superhero type of thing. I still need to move into that space. Like how they did Boama Wakanda.
Yeah.
I still want to be in that.
You didn't get the call for Wakanda?
Oh. Mam Connie got the call for Wakanda. That was enough.
Yeah.
I think she paved the way for us, and Angas, maybe the next call for Wakanda 15 will call me.
Superhero, like are you black woman type vibe?
Yeah, but not good now. I'm gonna have to now fight.
Yeah.
No, not that. Maybe I must use like my eyes. Like I must go, something. Something. But it must also be based here in Africa. Like KwaZulu, somewhere under a rock.
Yeah.
Somewhere I live there and I'm like this animal that comes out once in a while. Then something that exciting.
Would comedy be a challenge for you? Comedy?
No.
The lack of diversity for me is not even to drag South Africa or to make South Africa seem like we are not powerful in our own ways. We are. We have produced globally renowned shows like Blood and Water, which was actually inspired by a real life story of Zephany Nurse. The story is the inspiration for the plot in Blood and Water, but there's obviously things that have been added for dramatic effect. I mentioned Blood and Water because it's one of those South African shows that had international appeal, that were watched globally, which goes to show that we already have the talent. We already have stories that are willing to be watched by other people. We have stories that are interesting to the international market. We have stories that are worth watching. We have the talent. We have the unique perspective, and that's why it was so beautiful to see how Netflix, obviously we had to depend on an international streaming service for this to happen, which basically funded Blood and Water. But it just goes to show that we have the talent. We even had movies, the 2005 movie Tsotsi, if I'm correct, you will correct me, but the 2005 movie Tsotsi that literally got international awards. We remember Terry Peto. They literally even were on international stages, going on international award shows. We have the talent. But my thing is, what are some of the issues? What's preventing South African film from progressing to even bigger heights? So I was looking for information and I was looking for clips from actors and actresses, and I'm very much aware that my video today is inspired by mostly Black women, Black South African actresses. And yes, that does give a perspective that is maybe leaning towards one type of experience, but I want us to watch these clips, and they do give insight to some of the issues or what happens behind the scenes in the South African film and television industry.
Working, I also don't, I want to know. I want these people abasoloko bethetha ngegama lam ngaphandle bona bahlele emisebenzini. They at work. I'm not. I have never not made it to work because the say flight masicho. There are actors who rock up at absolutely sloshed. There are actors who rock up bengazazi lines. Lines. There are actors obona into koba no character work has been done here, but they're here.
Give us names. Who is it? Connie Ferguson. Who are we talking about here?
zonke inyanga afuna ahamba yonke amasonto umuntu weqiniso uzomtshela ukuthi inhliziyo hamba uyiphula nabo bathanda uNkulunkulu abantwana bakaNkulunkulu nabanamadlozi and you never said sorry. They're stepping on people's toes because they've got power. I'm a producer, but the power of the industry because of Abanyama It Girls. They are the shizness, and it's, we are nothing. And they say stuff to us, so abusive. They body shame you, and it's okay. Ngene kumanye amaseti ungene ku-artist esaba wonke umuntu makangena laphayana, they will tell you how not perfect you are, like, and then they tell you in the straight face ukuthi unje, and they never say sorry. They are in the industry because of baphethe abantu abastrong, and they know ukuthi this is their house, and you're just there, and they'll make you feel like that. Baningi, but life goes on. Life goes on. For me, I say life goes on, and it's okay. All right.
Even when people hurt us,
diva.
Yeah.
It's the Cape Town story. I love more the shoes than I do the apartment, I must admit. Tell us about the shoes and tell us why that story mattered so much that it had to make the book.
That story was important to show exploitation. The things we go through that never come to the fore. To have to travel to Cape Town, not knowing where you're going to stay. Because production, it's not important for them to book us accommodation. Now, Cape Town's not cheap. Now
unless you're living in the hood.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Unless you're earning the Cape Town dollar. And I certainly wasn't. So I'm leaving Johannesburg and I have to find my own accommodation. With what money? And I'm still renting in Johannesburg.
Yeah. When it comes to entertainment, I think you guys are at the bottom of the food chain. Because I've done TV, presenting, radio. We podcast now, we just sit and talk shit. You know what I mean? But that was extreme, bruh.
It's a lot.
Different grade.
And
And on top of that, there's this thing that you guys are going through where you don't get the royalties.
Yes.
So even like with music, at least can still earn music if you have the right paperwork for years and years to come. You know, like the Lion King guy, who's still eating to this day.
So we're hoping that one day someone's going to sign whatever needs to be signed so that we can also get the
presidents.
You guys are at the bottom of the food chain.
Yeah,
but you do the most work.
Yeah.
And you sacrifice the most.
Yeah.
And you're the most passionate.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to me.
I mean, that's why it is a healing thing. It's a calling. And you can't do that if you don't have the calling. An actor that does not have the calling does not last. But actors...
Look, I want to talk about the challenges. I need to address this right now. I want to talk about the challenges because I think this is, it goes back, I had challenges on the Queen with the makeup and hair department. I would get to work and my costume would be stinking of EJ's fluid. So there was a time when I was wearing an undergarment. When I looked at it, it said Gracious Mabuza. Who it was Rami Chweni's costume.
Yeah.
I still went to set and wore it. Ndiyaqonda? But xa kunamhlanje, people will sit on the set okanye kuthiwa Brenda Ngxoli is difficult or she's ungrateful or whatever. But those are actually some of the things that I had to stomach. And sometimes it is not the person at the top who is busy getting up to no good. It is the people at who are running the show. And then I'm not going to leave and be like, oh yeah, Connie Ferguson did it. She didn't.
From the clips that we just watched together, you can see that there is a consistent running theme in these industries, in the South African film industry. And this is not to romanticize the American film industry. They have their own issues like the Harvey Weinstein situations, the Me Too situations. In the South African film industry, there is a consistent pattern. All these actresses talk about the same thing, and that is bullying. There is some kind of bullying or mistreatment and exploitation that happens in the South African film industry, sometimes from crew members and sometimes from production. There is a culture of putting people down in the film industry. There is a culture of basically not allowing someone to feel like they belong in that space and making sure that there are people who get first preferences in the film industry. There is favoritism in the film industry. We know this. We know this because why is it that if you go on DSTV, you will see that it's the same actors, it's the same actresses, different storylines. Sometimes even influencers are in this industry. Like, you just see that some things are not adding up. How come this person is everywhere and they are acting everywhere, but you just know like they don't have a talent that rivals some of our veteran actors? So there is those office politics, obviously, in the film industry that we have seen, and you can't tell me all these actresses are talking about the same thing and it's not real. And it's not to say that there's no good film production companies in South Africa. There's also the bad who are sort of gatekeepers in the film industry. The other issue that I also noticed with the film industry in South Africa, we have so much potential. We have so much potential, but there is a lot of gatekeeping in the South African film industry. Like, till today, most of production companies are white owned, and the black owned production companies in our country basically rely and survive through government funding. They have to get funding from the National Film and Video Foundation, which also has its own bureaucracy where you basically don't know when you're going to get funding. There is corruption in some departments where you don't know when funding is going to come out. And basically, people at the top, the government decides who gets funding and who doesn't. And we all know the story of corruption and how that works. Another issue that I've noticed in the South African film industry was pointed out by Khomotso in this podcast attached here.
Put so much pressure on the producers to make people behave so badly is because of that. Yeah. We have a channel right now that is capitalizing on Black poverty, on Black depravity, and it's doing exceptionally well. Moja Love. Like, you know how Cakenet was founded on Boere Love. Boere Love for Boere Love, basically. Yeah. Moja Love is the opposite. It's like a literal hatred of Black people. It is cheap and it is nasty. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. You're showing the worst of Black behavior. There's a couple of exceptions, like Ex-Repo, where there's a sense of justice because people are getting their things back. But for the most part, you have presenters who have no business like dealing with a family's squabbles. Not a psychologist, not a psychiatrist, not a therapist, not a priest. Just sort of like, oh, Ndumiso, like, you're having sex with your brother's wife. And Moja Love basically, I realized, took its example from Jerry Springer?
So I am going to play devil advocate. I am the
What the Khomutso podcast pointed out to me was the fact that also the South African audience is responsible in a way for what becomes popular. It's not only a production team problem, it's also the South African audience, in the sense that people want to watch drama, people want to watch toxicity, people want to watch shows that are relatable, or they show black struggle, they show black struggle, they show toxicity, toxic dynamics in the black community. There is a tendency where stories in South Africa that are not relatable do not succeed in the film and television industry. Productions or shows that are not relatable or don't focus on family drama, historical drama, apartheid, racism, all those things, those films struggle in the South African context. And that is also because of the South African audience. We know, guys, we know that shows that promote infidelity or talk about infidelity or just toxic family dynamics, we know that they are lucrative. That is why telenovelas, soapies are so common in South Africa. Yes, soapies are beautiful in the sense that they give actors and actresses longevity. You know that if you're an actor or an actress, you have a contract, you're getting paid, you have probably 6 months paid. You know that for the rest of the year, the actor or the actress won't have to worry about money or finances. That is the beautiful thing about soapies and telenovelas. But let's be honest, the storylines are the same. The storylines are the same. There's no diversity. And I understand it's also because people want to watch something that is easy to digest. It's popcorn film. It's film that can easily be digestible. It's TV shows that are easy to understand. But I'm also thinking that shouldn't be the limit. South African audiences are limited in what we are able to get from our own. We know this. We know that South Africans crave diverse content. We know this because even through cinema, we see how much we support international productions. We support animation. We support, science fiction. We support fantasy. There is people in South African context who would like to indulge themselves in different genres. And yes, cinema in South Africa has issues in itself. Like, I was doing research and I found some key issues with cinema as well in the South African context, and that is the fact that cinema, or just being able to go to a cinema, is so expensive. It's so expensive that most of the people in South Africa will go to a cinema once in a while, or after month end, or during December time when people have bonuses. People cannot afford to go to cinemas, and cinemas are also not easily accessible. We have a lot of cinemas in the country, but here's the key problem. They are located in affluent neighborhoods or suburbs that are just far away from people who are in villages, people who are in townships. They are far away. Honestly, I also don't know what happened, because I don't think, for me, it's valuable to have the excuse and say South Africa doesn't have enough funding, or South Africa doesn't just have the resources to produce sci-fi, fantasy films. There are issues in that. There definitely are. But what happened? We used to produce such interesting film and cinematography. We used to have such interesting and diverse shows on our television screens all the time. which for me shows that we have the storytelling capability. We have the ability to create new narratives and not recycle the same storylines. Guys, don't you remember the shows we used to have? We used to have Yizo Yizo, we used to have Gazlam, we used to have Chacha, we used to have Backstage, we used to have shows that were based in the South African context, but they showed different perspectives. They showed a different representation of South African life. There was a show that I remember vividly as a kid. It was called Interrogation Room. There was even Ubizo. We had those genres. And I only talk about this because I feel like we have the potential, because we already have the talent. We have the potential to produce sci-fi films. We have the potential to produce fantasy, action, thriller. We have it because we have such interesting stories. Like that video by Tandega really made me think, Uti, we truly have the potential to be more. And now we have so many resources available to us. I just think it would be interesting to see South Africans be able to flourish. So, what are the solutions? What are the solutions to this issue? I think one of the things that I just think could be possibilities is that I have not seen extreme marketing for the South African film industry. You know how in America, where a new movie comes out, they will even create like Lunchables, like snacks. Maybe you'll see, I don't know, the Avengers on a bottle of Coca-Cola or on a chocolate bar or on a billboard. There is extreme marketing for new films, and that is something I think is missing. There are so many new films in South Africa that I didn't even know were released because the marketing isn't there. Like, I genuinely believe that there needs to be a budget for marketing, because there is no reason why South Africa basically gets a huge budget. Okay, not the biggest budget, but they get a budget for film and television, but they only create small revenue. It doesn't make sense that you get a big budget, but the gross from box office is so little. That is something that I think it's also the problem of the audience, but we also just don't know when new films are released. So I think there needs to be an improvement in the marketing of local film and television. But also, I think we are in a new age. We are in a digital age whereby we can use social media platforms, we can use streaming services to stream in South African movies to international audiences and even South African audiences. Because one thing I've noticed, South Africans appreciate South African content when it's appreciated by global stages. So we need to be able to focus on basically dismantling the power dynamics. We already know that the people who run production companies, some of them have a bully mentality or a God complex where they want to be worshipped and they make other actors feel like less than. We know that production makes most of the money. We know that actors don't get royalties from their projects. We know this. So I think we need to make sure that we find ways, like actors and actresses, streaming services can be potential. And also, guys, I don't know, maybe I'm delusional. But we have artificial intelligence now. We have AI. And I genuinely believe like we don't need CGI as much anymore, because that was the biggest issue. Hollywood is Hollywood because it can afford to create these alternative worlds. We maybe don't have a Hollywood. We don't have the ability to create these fictional worlds. But now we have the opportunity of AI. We literally can incorporate AI in some ways to create South African sci-fi, fantasy, or any kind of action-packed type of South African film. I genuinely believe we have so much potential because in the early 2000s, we were on an upward incline. We were going up. We were creating diverse television shows. We had so many television shows. So I'm just confused about what happened. Obviously, we know it's the politics of the working environment, it's the budgeting, it is the marketing, but it's also the South African audience that struggles to basically be drawn to entertainment that isn't relatable, entertainment that is based in myth or fiction. I wanted us to have this conversation, darling, but let me know how you feel. How do you feel about the lack of diversity in the South African film and television industry? And if you watched the video till the end, please leave a camera emoji in the comment section. And thank you for watching, darling. Bye-bye.